Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. To most people, the Fett clone known as Omega is a sweet and empathetic individual who wants to do nothing more than just spread her joy and kindness to the galaxy around her. She's an individual who seems to only see the good in others, whether it's finding a connection with the Bad Batch.
Lads, we've got company.
Hello.
Or finding some redeeming qualities in a greedy Trandoshan fixer like Sid.
One last race. If you win, we pay you double. If we win, we get Sid.
Or even putting her neck on the line for a crime boss that literally just screwed her and her friends over.
Don't! He made a mistake, that's all.
Some people might not like Omega because they perceive her as too trusting or naive as a character.
Oh, the flawed logic of an idealistic child. Emotion and sentiment have no place within these walls.
But here's the thing about Omega, she's actually an extremely complex character. You know, there's the persona you see on screen all the time, happy, bright, and full of empathy, and then there are the details about her life which you have to kind of read in between the lines to understand, which paints her as almost the opposite of this joyous, carefree child.
Here, you try.
Huh?
You're supposed to catch it.
Oh.
Who doesn't know how to play a game of catch? I believe that not only is Omega not naive, she is in complete control of her behavior, and the strategic depth of her actions will only be revealed once the entire story of the Bad Batch is played out. This is an extremely bright young child who also happens to be exceptionally dangerous because of her ability to immediately understand other beings and what motivates them, with just limited interaction with them. First, let's start off with the facts here. Omega might seem like the little sister in this group, but let me remind you, Omega is an unaltered clone, which means she has no advanced aging. I'm not sure how old Omega was when Nala Se created her in that secret lab below Tipica City. And Omega was already old enough to remember the birth of the Clone Force 99, who were also born in that same exact facility. So Omega is actually not the little sister in this group, she's the big sister. Now initially, Omega plays the little sis role quite well. She might be brilliant, but she's never left the world of Kamino in her entire life. She doesn't have the same combat and survival training or battlefield experience of the Bad Batch. Heck, there are a lot of things that she's never seen.
Whoa. What is this?
That would be dirt.
It's amazing.
Scenes like this are designed to make us underestimate Omega's ability, and that's because we typically view characters with stereotypes, and Omega really fits the stereotype of being a young, kind of innocent, naive girl very well. But the truth is, you can be a deep and analytical genius, but also never had played catch before or seen dirt because of the circumstances you were raised beneath. And while Omega does have a lot of catching up to do about the real world and how to fight, she does it all with ease and a bit of help from her brothers. Hunter teaches Omega how to track.
What are you doing?
Tracking.
Wrecker takes Omega through Explosive Ordnance Disposal 101 for some reason.
Better get it right. 3, 2, 1. Obviously not that one. Too late. Run for it.
Talk about misunderstood, by the way. Wrecker is low-key genius for being the unit's EOD specialist. Dumb people are usually not going to do this job. And then, of course, Echo steps in for Crosshair and teaches Omega a little bit about marksmanship.
Steady. Arms level.
And keep your eye on the target.
And then, of course, Tech gives Omega tons of homework about Imperial vehicle identification, which is important.
Does this unscheduled break mean you are fully versed in every ship in the Imperial fleet?
Do I have to do this right now? We're on a mission.
And as we can see, Omega absorbs this information very quickly, and she also proves very quickly that she can be much more than just a member of the team. She has a brilliant mind, a strategic genius that surpasses almost every member of the group if you really think about it. Hunter always seems to be too focused on the small details of a mission and misses the larger picture, which oftentimes gets the group into a lot of trouble. When the crew escaped from Salakamai and landed on the moon of Ordo, Omega and Hunter go looking for some missing capacitors that a Ordo Min dragon stole from them. Now, Hunter was plan to show Omega how to take care of herself, but he gets knocked out by the Order of Moondragon and loses his oxygen mask. Omega saves Hunter by replacing that mask and then goes on her own to retrieve the capacitor. Now, instead of seeing the dragon as some pest or some terrifying evil creature, Omega simply just sees it as a creature that has specific needs that just need to be met. You see, Order of Moondragons really like energy, and so Omega reaches out and gives her flashlight to the dragon, distracting it, and she takes the capacitor for herself. I mean, she's brave, she's smart, she's able to resolve conflicts without violence. This is incredible. And by the end of the first season, when Hunter gets captured and taken to Kamino, it's actually Omega who comes up with the brilliant plan of using her intimate knowledge of the secret passages below Tipica City to save Hunter. Without her leadership and knowledge during this mission, this could have been the end of the Bad Batch as we know it. And it's also during this trip to the underlevels of Tipica City that we start to see a darker side to Omega.
This tunnel leads to her private research lab. The others run throughout Kamino.
You, all right?
It doesn't matter.
I remember this scene because it was the only time we actually see Omega kind of sad in the first season. It's the only time that something bothers her.
I don't get it. What's so special about this lab?
It's where I was created.
Here?
I mean, think about it. Being born as a human to Kaminoan scientists, that could not have been easy. When the Kaminoans first made the clone trooper program, several failed batches of Fett clones were actually destroyed without any consideration to their humanity. Instead, what the Kaminoan scientists were focused on was whether they had the right traits for their program. I'm still actually kind of confused and suspicious by why Nala Se has spent so much time and energy protecting little Omega. I don't trust Kaminoans. And that's because Kaminoans are famous for being heartless and cruel, especially to their clones, which they saw as product that needed to be perfected, not human beings that needed their care and nurture. Little Omega most likely did not have much of a childhood at all on Tipica City, which is why every time the Bad Batch show her just a little bit of kindness, it really means a lot to her.
It's your own room. Well, what do you think? I thought this place could feel more like a home.
It's perfect. Thank you, Rekka.
To have survived amongst the Kaminoans, Omega had to be relatively cunning. She needed to show her worth. I mean, this was a species that culled massive amounts of their own population in order to survive a natural disaster. They are simply ruthless, and they weren't exactly known for charity or supporting lost causes. And luckily, Omega is a super empathetic and analytical person. She is a brain that is definitely worth something. Her heroes almost make her Jedi-like. I mean, she was able to identify Sid when the Bad Batch go looking for her in her cantina without even knowing what she looked like. And when trying to find a way off of Lao, Omega quickly realized that they could bribe the local officials rather than shoot their way out. That's what Crosshair wanted to do. This is a highly unusual skill for a non-Force sensitive to have. By understanding how other people think and what motivates them, Omega can naturally open up more dialogue options that other people might just not have access to. Omega's mind just works differently, and because of that, she has access to a lot more information in social situations. Which means while the rest of us are tiptoeing around social situations like we're playing Minesweeper, Omega has Batman detective vision and is looking through people's clothing. It's just not fair. And so what motivates this super analytical genius child? What does she use her powers for? Because this is what determines whether she's evil or not. Well, she rarely talks about it. You know, even though Kamino is her home world, she actually doesn't really enjoy her time there at all.
I spent most of my life confined on Kamino. I won't be trapped here too.
And so when the Empire took over and Imperial officers started showing up on Kamino, Omega would have noticed the changes right away. And because she looked like a child when the grown-ups, aka Lama Su, Prime Minister of Kamino, and Nala Se were speaking to Moff Wilhelm Tarkin, they allowed her to stay and listen to everything because she just wasn't a threat. But again, Omega absorbs everything, including Tarkin's lack of love for the clones.
Extraordinary, aren't they?
That remains to be seen. Tell me about Clone Force 99.
Now, when Nala Se is talking about these mutated clones, notice how Tarkin almost identifies Omega as one of them.
They are medically defective clones whose cellular mutations enhanced traits desirable in a soldier.
How many of these enhanced clones do you possess?
Omega then realizes that Tarkin is really after the Bad Batch. He does not like them at all.
Reports indicate they exhibit a concerning level of disobedience and disregard for orders.
A side effect of their mutation.
yet one that has never hindered the completion of their missions.
This interaction with Tarkin is extremely important. It's kind of the catalyst for this entire show, for this escape. And so Omega realized that Tarkin will most likely create a loyalty test for the Bad Batch to see if they will be a good fit for the Empire. Omega understands the Bad Batch intimately. Remember, she was the lab assistant who helped Nala Se create these clones in the first place. She understands their genetic profile and personality makeup better than almost anyone. She knows that these clones, therefore, will not be a good fit for the Empire. They will just not obey these orders. At which point, probably the gears in her head started spinning and she realized that she had a way to escape, and that she needed to escape. Omega realized that she was no longer safe on Kamino. Tarkin clearly was a powerful man, and now Nala Se and Lama Su were no longer in charge. I mean, the Kaminoans, especially Lama Su, might not have realized this yet, but Omega knew before everyone else. Things were changing, and things were going to be very bad very quickly for people like her. A step ahead of everyone else, the first people she talks to after this meeting is Hunter. She goes directly to the Bad Batch in order to try to convince them to leave, and hopefully they can serve as an escort for her. Omega uses her information and also her intimate knowledge of the clones to convince them to take her off of Tipica City, and it ultimately works. I wouldn't say that this is straight manipulation, because usually manipulation is, exploitative. It creates an unfair situation. It seems like in Omega's case, it's a positive manipulation. She creates good outcomes for everyone involved. And I guess in a situation where everyone wins, that's not manipulation. I guess you can call it contrivance. Omega is kind of the perfect leader. She really understands people. She knows what motivates them, what their strengths and weaknesses are. She knows how to get people to do things that might help them or herself. And having such powers is a great responsibility. The question is, what motivates her? Well, we see what really scares Omega more than anything else when she takes a side detour to Toledo, an abandoned Kaminoan cloning facility. It's clear that she does not like being in these surroundings. She fears it.
Can't sleep?
I keep thinking about the Kaminoans, seeing that place. I don't want to end up an experiment in a tube.
That's not gonna happen.
Now, of course, when Omega is in a difficult situation, when she's facing the prospect of returning to Kamino, being reintroduced to the labs, she's willing to manipulate people. Like when she's captured by Bane and put under guard by Toto 360. He's a vain and weird little droid, and Omega immediately picks up on that fact that he's neglected, and she realizes a little bit of attention and love will go a long way into earning this bot's trust. And so when she detects that the droid has some damage to his leg, well, she seizes on the opportunity.
I could fix your leg, if you want.
She plays down how capable she is.
Will you just let me help you?
You are a prisoner.
Exactly. It's not like I can escape off this ship.
That is a valid point.
I'm only a kid.
And just like that,
Sorry.
she's free. Now, Omega rarely does this. She rarely screws people over completely if she can avoid it. Oftentimes when she does use her empathy to understand other individuals, it helps her to create more connections and alliances with others. Like when she convinces the Pikes to spare Roland Duran's life.
Don't! He made a mistake, that's all.
This would come back in a big way when Roland agrees to help Hunter and Wrecker figure out where Omega and Crosshair are being held in the first place. And mark our words, that lizard, Sid, who Omega saved on numerous occasions, well, she'll be back. I know she betrayed the Bad Batch once, but I'm almost certain that Omega's past actions will affect her, and she will come in clutch sometime in the future. And Omega does the same thing with Emery, her clone sister. She plants those seeds of doubt with compassion. Emery was supposed to be the one who was watching over Omega. She's the one who was supposed to convince Omega to behave and follow orders. But clearly Omega's already made up her mind. She's not going to follow orders. She's going to try to escape this facility. Instead of listening to Emery, Omega will use her empathy and charm to slowly win her over to her side. Emery is the one who first reveals that Omega and her are sisters, and she does this in order to manipulate Omega. She tries to make her trust her more.
You might know me better than you think. We're sisters, Omega.
But then Omega kind of reverses the situation and, uses her compassion to try and win Emery over.
I never knew that I had a sister. It's nice not being alone.
And look at Emery's face. I think this is like the first time we see any emotion on her face. Omega's words have clearly struck a nerve on this very orderly and rules-oriented clone. The idea of loneliness is probably something that Emery has never given herself an opportunity to explore. But Omega's warmth and humanity, her ability to empathize with her, has ambushed her completely. Emery is not used to these type of connections. You just don't have these connections when you're working as a scientist in the Empire. And while it's not enough to make Emery betray the Empire, Omega has clearly affected her with her words, which is why Emery ends up giving back Omega her little straw doll, which is clearly against regulations. And then when she catches Crosshair and Omega trying to run away, she does the following.
You're not thinking clearly. Neither of you. But it's not too late. Come with me, and no one needs to know about this.
No one needs to know about this? 2 TK troopers were stunned. That same beekeeping droid gets scrapped again. I don't think you're gonna be able to hide this. You know, it might not seem like Emery is doing much here, but if you really think about it, I mean, she's putting her ass on the line here. She's covering up a major incident. She's honestly being a bit reckless. It's very uncharacteristic of her to act this way, which shows us that Omega's magic is working. So what is going on here? Is Omega an evil mastermind, a manipulative little operative, or is she really genuinely sweet and kind and caring of others? Well, I would argue you're asking the wrong questions and looking at this from the wrong angle. Generally speaking, manipulative people, individuals who go out there with the intent of misleading people and trying to gain advantage over them, these are individuals who are either unaware of how society works or just naive to think that you can screw over so many people in your life and then live a good, happy life after that. It's just not how it works. Individuals who manipulate, who cheat, scam, and hurt others will always be swimming in the wake of their own bullshit and chaos. They'll always end up getting caught or exposed or heck, even killed. It's just how it works. That's essentially what the Sith were. They were just a bunch of bat-crazy, destructive people. What Omega is different. She's a true genius. She understands the people around her with a clarity that can only be called genius. And instead of manipulating these people to serve her or protect her, she identifies what motivates other people and then focuses on creating mutually beneficial relationships with these people, more stable relationships that can help keep both parties happy. She knows that scamming and tricking people into doing her bidding in the long run will never pan out. Leaving disgruntled individuals in your wake who feel wronged is a great way to live for the rest of your life, looking over your shoulder. And Omega, well, she's already looking over her shoulder non-stop. Intellectually, Omega realized that in order to survive and escape Camino, as a clone without a family or real-world experience, she needed to find a family, create friends, very quickly. Her enjoyment of simple things like sand or seeing hyperspace for the first time, that joy on her face, it's completely real. This is who she is. And she allows the Bad Batch to see it too because it's a calculated move so that they understand this about her, so that they can be inspired by her innocence. But even that's not enough. Omega needs to reach out to every person she sees and make a connection. And don't for 1 second believe that Omega is just doing this because she's naive and stupid and doesn't understand what evil is. I mean, she was born in a Kaminoan lab to Kaminoan scientists. She's seen some really gnarly and messed up stuff. She recognized the evil in Tarkin when she first met her. She also saw the evil in individuals like Dr. Hemlock. But seeing evil in someone is relatively easy to do, guys. But what isn't easy, what requires true intelligence, is seeing the good in people like Crosshair, an individual who she understood better than anyone else in her unit. And only someone as desperate as Omega would try to cultivate that goodness in Crosshair. There's a very ideological side to her as well. She's not one to give up on lost causes, I guess. And this is also why she pursues Sid in a very hopeless but also inspiring way. What makes Omega so remarkable is that she can read people like a book. She can see all the bad things inside of a person. Yet at the same time, she can somehow just focus on the good things and hope that those good things will surface and take over control of that person. What makes Omega so remarkable is the fact that she can read people like a book. And even though she's read through your worst chapters, she'll still focus on the good chapters instead. You could call it naive, I'd call it courageous. She simply wants the better side of every person she meets to win over. In the NFL, they would have called Omega a player's coach. In the military, Omega would have been that senior officer who knows every person's name and makes the effort to create a personal connection with the enlisted men. As a politician, Omega would have been a candidate with no enemies, a truly special and a remarkable person. She's an individual who does not believe in the zero-sum game. She believes that there is enough for everyone and that everyone can be helped and saved. While this show might have started out featuring the Bad Batch as the central group in this story, it's clear now with each episode and season that Omega is in fact the leader of this unit, because there is truly something special about her. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. I'll see you next time.